I've been calling this in my head the joy of the depth, so I'm interested to see what you think. In this one, we're going to get under the hood of some stuff that you may have heard about in the tabloids or heard about in your LinkedIn feed, and maybe don't necessarily know exactly how it works. We're gonna take a look at some of that stuff now. Our first talk is going to be by Keanan Koppenhaver, and he is giving us a talk called "What is a Zip Bomb?" Give him a hand, please.
So good morning, everybody. I'm going to try to wrangle both the microphones here. So this is one of those weird. Move this down a little. Don't have to listen to all the feedback. This is one of those weird kind of rabbit holes that. Let's be back here. Cool. We're gonna go with this approach. So this is one of those weird rabbit holes that I kind of fell into and spent probably too many hours looking into, but it was kind of a cool internet thing. And you're all going to get a fantastic return on that hours of time investment in the following 10 minutes. So the basic idea behind the zip bomb is it was originally created years and years ago. We'll get into that, but it's a zip file that you download or someone sends you as oh cool, check this out. And it's relatively small. You can email it around, you can download it easily. But when you double click on it, you're in for a world of pain because it gets really freaking huge. This talk was kind of inspired by an article that came out. Researchers have apparently still been working on this problem. And somebody in a lab created a zip file that's 46 meg, so that's about the size of one of the ebooks on my Kindle. But when you expand it, it's 4.5 petabytes, which is about 60,000 high-def movies. There's probably someone in here who has enough space to store all that, but I don't. So that would basically break my computer at that point. And that's why it's kind of an interesting problem, because how do you take something that you can compress it down to that small size? So the first thing we're going to think about is why would someone do this? There's a few reasons. Number one, it's a weird challenge. We as technical people like really interesting weird things and kind of pushing boundaries to see absolutely how far we can go. If you ever compressed a file and said, well, that only saved me a couple megabytes or something like that, people apparently have decided to take that to the extreme with this concept. Number two, people like to troll online. People like to create things that have weird side effects or just unintended kind of consequences, and this is definitely one of those things. And a slightly more practical purpose, what they were originally used for is these kind of files can break antivirus in really weird ways. So basically, antivirus programs kind of scan things that come into your computer. If this zip file comes into your computer, antivirus says, okay, cool, I'm going to scan this, and it starts going down this same rabbit hole of opening all these files, and then it breaks because it runs out of hard drive space. And you can kind of think, if you've seen these robots from Boston Dynamics, it's kind of similar. So our zip bomb is kind of the tool that opens the door for other more malicious viruses to come in, because while the antivirus program is dealing with this ever-expanding file, some sort of more malicious tool can just come in and then actually wreck your computer, right? Super creepy, but kind of interesting. So how does this actually work? Who here's seen one of these before? Anybody? The camera looks like this? Cool. So for those of you that haven't, I really wish I would have brought one along. But the basic idea is, imagine you're working the security desk downstairs, it's late, you've been told to watch all the cameras, make sure nobody's coming in the building. Someone hands you this can, you turn it over, it sounds like there's actually cashews and things inside. But when you open it, this spring-loaded snake pops out directly in your face. And so the idea is if you were trying to pay attention to all these monitors and things, and you got handed one of these, it would distract you when it opens long enough for somebody to maybe slip in the building or something like that. That's kind of the same idea. So where it all started was this file called 42.zip. And a little bit different specs than before, but it was basically 42K. So that's about a 20-page Word doc, and it expanded into the same collection of 60,000 high-def movies. This is one of the first zip bombs that was ever created. So this URL is actually live. If any of you have internet right now, you can pull it up. Don't click on that link at the top. And if you do, and your computer helpfully starts expanding it for you, please don't come talk to me after. But basically, it gives you a little bit of info of how it works. The zip file contains 16 zip files, which have 16 zip files in there, and in there, and in there, a concept known as recursion. And that's what allows you to get this extreme level of compression from petabytes of data down to kilobytes of data. So, in a story that definitely never happened to me, some children receive big boxes for their birthday when their parents think they're hilarious, And they open them and there's another smaller box inside and another smaller box inside. And if you have never seen this before, then you probably open each individual box until you get down to what's in a very small box. Wasting a lot of time and also excitement. The next time you get a similar sized package, you might open it a couple layers deep and then realize it's the same gambit and not go all the way to the bottom. This is basically how antivirus programs detect zip bombs now and don't fall prey to them, because real people don't nest zip files and zip files and zip files. So they just stop. But the newest version that just came out, we talked about at the beginning, actually achieves similar levels of compression with no recursion. So it fooled antivirus programs for a while because it just overlapped files instead of recursing them. But also real people don't overlap their files in the hard drive space because that makes no sense. So it's still fine. You shouldn't be too worried about this maliciously belonging on your computer. But again, if you visit the URL we showed you before and you yourself initiate the unzip, I'm sorry, I can't help you. So we said it's kind of recursive, and we touched on this a little bit, but let's look a little bit further into how this actually works. So I've got a whole bunch of data up here, and I'll give you like 10 seconds to think about how you might, in one sentence or less, express to me what's up here, short of not reading me every digit that's up on the screen. So the way I thought about it is you can just say, oh, this is 150 pairs of 0, 1. So you can see like we've achieved compression, right? Because we went from this to this. So if we take then this and we say, okay, we have this piece of data, which is really just 10 of those, we've now achieved recursive compression. And so this is the basic idea. We started with this, and we compressed it all the way down to what's actually now 10 times that in a much smaller string. We could go many layers down until we hit the limit of what zip files can actually compress, which is 42.zip. So, like you said, this very quickly, when you have repetitive, non-real world data like that, you can achieve huge levels of compression. Side note, I'm reserving levels of compression as my next band name, so nobody else can take it. But like we talked about earlier, no legitimate content ever reaches these levels of compression, because people are compressing images with really wide-ranging colors and MP3 files with really wide-ranging audio levels and things. So the only kind of data that can get this small from being that large is repetitive, non-real-world data like we saw there. So that's how antivirus tools and other computer tools detect this sort of thing. But it hasn't stopped people from finding joy in creating these interesting challenges for us. Yeah, so real-life content is much more varied, and it's really pretty easy to distinguish nonsense like what we saw on the slide earlier from people's vacation photos that they want to compress and send across the internet. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this stuff and spend some more time on it like I did, the first link here is the article that kind of inspired this talk. Talks about kind of the new techniques and is responsible for sending me down this rabbit hole. The Wikipedia page is also pretty solid. Because there's no URLs here for you to copy down, the slides are at the top of my Twitter, so you can find those there. So I'm Keanan, this is me on Twitter and everywhere else, and I'll be around the rest of the day for questions or via email. Thanks so much.